Setting partitions and shelves. At this point of the installation, you've already set the foundation rail. Our proprietary clips that mount onto each partition fit into the 5mm kerf on your foundation rail that you see here. Simply all you have to do is tilt the bottom one in, put the upright partition at an angle, line up the 5mm kerf with the clip, push it tight to the wall. This first section you're going to see setting the partitions is wall to open, where the end caps are on the foundation rail that acts like the wall. You just push it back to the wall. Our clips now are unique. They fit into the partition and into the bottom of the shelf. You may have seen this on an earlier video, but this is just this section for setting shelves and partitions. Like in the other portions, you're going to create a box by setting a top and bottom shelf to create an actual cabinet, and then set the additional shelves. Once you set all the clips for the top and bottom of the partitions, the shelves will actually secure the partitions. The holes that are in the bottom of the shelf just simply cradle over the top of the shelf clip. It's quite simpler if you do the back holes first and then tilt down the shelf and lock the front. Just like the top, we're going to set the bottom. You may want to look below to make sure that those clips are actually set into each hole and it's solid. Once you have the top and bottom solid and that bottom shelf is in place, it gives you a flat plane to use as a guide to set your tape measure to adjust the heights for the rest of the clips. After you set all 4 clips, you can just simply set the shelf and make sure that the clips are bottomed out in the bottom of the shelf. Just like we set the other ones, simply line it up, drop it into place. And repeat this process over again. Now this first section is open to wall. The next section is going to be attaching onto this existing unit and creating a corner space once we set this shelf. Now if you're going to do a corner shelf and you just want to review where you're at in that process, we've already got the first section established. Now you just set the next partition approximately 11 inches away because your corner shelf is 11 inches. It comes with the metal brackets already attached. You may have seen this in the corner shelf section. Again, it's just like setting a regular shelf. You set it on the clips on the right hand side. You're going to use a spring clamp or any type of clamp that you have available to self-align the shelf. What we're going to actually do now is pre-drill with the 1/8 inch pre-drill that comes in your installation packet slightly into the face of the joining shelf. And once you do that, it makes it a lot easier to take the number 6 Phillips screw, the magnetic tip holder, the magnetic Phillips tip, and apply the number 6 screw into that space. There's 2 clips, and those 2 clips have elongated holes that allow you to adjust out of square in a corner application like this. Again, just like any other section building, you're going to want a top and bottom to secure the partition, and then you can set the last 2 shelves. Once we get this portion all put together, we're going to build an adjacent unit to this, just like we're building a 2 or 3 wide section. The L-shaped shelf is something that can be 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot wide by 2 foot. Most people in the industry are just simply a 2x2. We like to be able to attach it to any existing unit that's using a twin beam shelf. Now just by simply putting the next partition, we can actually put in the next section. This illustrates 2 different kinds of shelves. We're using a 3/4 inch shelf next to the twin beam shelf. 3/4 inch shelf comes 18 inches wide and 24 inches wide. Anything beyond that would be our proprietary twin beam that's 1.5 inch face. The 3/4 shelves are good for a lot smaller component parts, canned goods, that type of thing in a pantry area, smaller spaces. Now notice to the left, the twin beam is actually the right component and the left component are connected. It's one equal plane. Here we can stagger the height. Notice the 3/4 standard and the 1.5" twin beam. Makes a really nice L-shaped counter. Now the next section is wall to wall. If you're to this stage and you've already got foundation rails on the wall and you're building a 3-wide section, now we just simply apply the partitions. Simply set the bottom in, tilt it up approximately to the width of the next shelf that you're going to set. Sometimes it's easier to measure the shelf up on the wall, draw just a little line, and you know where to set that partition. However, the partitions do slide easily to get to the point of where you're going to set your shelf clip. Again, always best to set the back one first. Tilt it down, same with the bottom. Once the clips are in, you can just drop the shelf in place. Now here we've sped things up a little bit, so you won't see me putting in the shelf clips. Now we're just going to show the different sections. If you're doing a 16-inch depth next to a 12-inch depth, we actually have to put 2 partitions side by side. That really works out well for 2 reasons. 2 different depths, and also it gives us a hinge or a flex point on the wall. In a 3-wide section like this, if everything were completely square and they were all connected together, you wouldn't be able to bend on a slight curve in a wall. By having the partitions side by side, it gives us a flex point. Now notice the partition can slide very easily to mount the next shelf into place. It's because we can slide in that keyway in the partition onto the foundation rail. Once we get that section put together and we transition back into a 12-inch piece, we don't want to have that partition be able to move anymore. So once I set this next partition, I'll show you how to actually secure the next partition that we're transitioning back on. See how that slips in there? It can slide back and forth. We're actually going to use a 5mm screw. You can see it close up there. It's a screw designed for a 5mm hole, just for putting in drawer glides, that type of thing. Our proprietary foundation rail system has a 5mm kerf on it that we've set our partitions into. It also receives this 5mm set screw. Just by holding the partition tight, we can set it in place. We've made a transition from 16 to 12. Now we're securing both of them in place. So now we have a nice wide opening. Now the last one, we've actually already cut the shelves. If you need to see cutting shelves, you could, on this website, click the Cutting to Size Shelf tab. This particular application, we're going to have a single rod. So this shelf's mounted a little bit higher on the left-hand side. Now that we've set the left and the right and the rods, the very last thing you need to do is, now that all the cases are constructed, is set your last shelves. And normally you or the homeowner can do that according to whatever their needs are. The fact that it's adjustable every 1.25 inches, they all lock into place, you can fit and accommodate any storage need you have.